Well, the United States of America has trade agreements with many nations throughout the world, the latest of which is the Trans-Pacific Partnership with several countries. Now, those who support free trade agreements say the competition helps economies of all parties involved. Others, including our next guest, say free trade agreements do just the opposite, actually hurts competition and hurts the American workforce. So let's get right to our guest. He is Burl Adkins, the founder and owner of Global Technology Associates in Dearborn and author of a new book called Common Sense Part 2, Restoring Our Manufacturing Sector and Reviving the American Dream. Burl, welcome to the Frank Beckman Show. Great to talk to you.
Oh, my pleasure, Kathy. Nice talking to you.
Well, you say in the information that was sent our way that the United States should abolish all free trade agreements. Why?
Well, I believe they're unfair, outrageously corrupt, and unconstitutional. And we could start with NAFTA if you'd like.
Well, you know, as I mentioned, supporters of free trade agreements say, you know what? Free trade with other countries allows us to get goods cheaper than maybe could be produced here in the United States, and that our economy benefits the more goods we export to other countries. So, you know, talk about that. What do you say to those who do support free trade agreements for those reasons?
Okay, let's look at NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement that went into effect in 1994. Then President Bill Clinton was quoted as saying NAFTA will create jobs, good-paying jobs for America. Then he went on to say that if I didn't believe this, I wouldn't be supporting it. The 10 years before NAFTA went into effect, we had a $12 billion trade deficit with Mexico. That's combined 12 years. The last 10 years, it exploded from $12 billion to over $600 billion.
So just in trade with Mexico, you know, I read a report on this because I was, you know, looking into some of these trade agreements and trying to get my head around, you know, why the pros and cons of them. And I did find, I mean, you know, the NAFTA aside, flash forwarding to last year in 2014, I read one statistic that said, you know what, the United States sold $2.3 trillion of exports to other countries. And again, breaking a new record for the fifth year in a row in how much we are getting by exporting our goods and services. I mean, if we abolished all free trade agreements, would we still be able to do $2.3 trillion in economic activity?
Well, from 2000 to 2010, we had a $6.2 trillion trade deficit with the rest of the world. $3.2 trillion of that was in manufactured goods, including $1.3 trillion in cars and car parts. According to the Huffington Post, this year, America has lost over 1 million jobs to Mexico since NAFTA was signed into law in 1994. The Economic Policy Institute states that between 2012 and 2014, over 60,000 American jobs were lost instead of the 70,000 American jobs we were told to expect to be created by the South Korea-U.S. Free Trade Agreement. Since China joined the WTO in 2001, and this is all documented, Kathy, we've lost over 2 million U.S. jobs to China. They just disappear. I don't know how anyone can claim that these free trade agreements have been beneficial for American workers and our tax base. We are going in debt $1 trillion a year, just about. We have an over $18 trillion deficit.
Yeah,
and
but
that doesn't include Social Security or Medicare.
I was just going to say, I mean, I think a lot of that has to do with the spending side of the ledger as well, but that's, you know, a little bit beside the point. But tell me this, how does getting rid of free trade agreements help level the playing field in terms of, I mean, you get rid of free trade agreements, and, you know, we have to put tariffs in. We have to put a lot of regulations in place to keep economic activity from bleeding overseas. I mean, how does getting rid of the free trade agreements level the playing field?
It restores our tax base. We've been devastated. Our tax base has been devastated. We lost over 6 million manufacturing jobs from 2000 to now. Over 66,000 factories have closed in the United States. All those people through the manufacturing process when the iron ore comes out of Minnesota, they have to pay federal and state taxes. They have to pay Social Security, Medicare, workers' compensation, employers' liability, unemployment. The list goes on and on.
Right. And I think one of the
that
other...
That adds to the cost of our products, which makes us uncompetitive. When the iron ore is sold from Minnesota to the barge company, all those costs, taxes, are figured into the cost.
Right. What do you think of corporate income taxes, though, in the United States? I mean, we're hearing more and more about tax inversions because of the corporate tax base in the United States and making it, a better incentive to relocate your headquarters overseas. I mean, do you think that plays into some of this?
Well, let me explain NAFTA a little bit here. In 1994, the United States government, intentionally or unintentionally, told every company that owned a factory that if they closed their factory and fired all their American workers and moved it to Mexico, they could unfairly avoid all federal, state, and local taxes, again, Social Security, Medicare, everything. And they could turn around and ship the products right back to the United States 100% tax-free related to manufacturing. Here's the kicker. If you stay in the United States and are devoted and loyal to your American employees and workers, you have to pay all those taxes and regulatory costs. And if you don't, the United States government could put you in prison for breaking the law. It's absolutely, I believe, unfair and outrageously corrupt. We are being taxed as Americans to death, and all these foreign products. Let me give you an example. In Germany, for example, a $30,000 car can be exported to the United States for $24,300 because Germany has a 19% tax that's rebated. So, in other words, if you live in Germany and you buy a car, you have to pay that 19%. It's $5,700. I use a $30,000 Chevy as an analogy. When that Volkswagen is exported to the United States, that $5,700 or 19% is rebated, meaning it's not collected in Germany. That's a tremendous, tremendous tax subsidy, and we have no offsetting tax or tariff when it enters the United States.
Right.
Now, if we looked at an American car, this retails for $30,000 in Germany, a Chevy, and it's exported to Germany, we get no tax rebate. All the taxes and regulatory costs are built into the cost. When it gets to Germany, they add a $5,700, what I call a tariff tax. And not only that, they have a 10% duty that's levied on cars. So that $30,000 Chevy that sells for $30,000 in Detroit, you take the $5,700 tax that they charge us, tariff tax, and then they add another $3,000 on a duty. So our American car is $38,000, $38,500 over there. I was in Germany in 2011,
right.
And I was there 2 weeks and didn't see one U.S.-made GM, Ford, or Chrysler car.
Well, Burl Adkins, author of Common Sense Part 2, Restoring Our Manufacturing Sector and Reviving the American Dream. I can read much more about your views on free trade agreements in the United States, but we appreciate your time and helping us walk through this a little bit. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you, Kathy, and you can go to Common Sense Part 2, the numeral 2.com on our webpage, or on Facebook, Common Sense Part 2.
Common Sense Part 2. All right, Burl Adkins, thank you. And you are listening